So number 1 wants us to find the midpoint of AB. So if I want to find the midpoint, then that means I'm using this formula right here, right? So we're wanting an ordered pair that's in the middle of these two coordinates. So here's our x, y, here's our first ordered pair, and here's our second ordered pair. So our midpoint formula says to take x1 plus x2 and then divide it by 2. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Then we have negative 8 plus 2 gives us negative 6, and 3 plus negative 7 gives us negative 4. Then we divide. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So that is our final answer. Okay. Now in number 3, it's different. So in number 1, it wants us to find the midpoint. In number 3, it's saying the coordinates of W are given. The midpoint is this. Okay, so it's different than saying find the midpoint. This is saying this is the midpoint. So this is the problem where we're going to draw our line. And we've got X, W in the midpoint. We've got X, W in the midpoint. So W is negative 2, 0. So W is negative 2, 0. It's telling us the midpoint is 3, negative 5. And we don't know this number. That's what we're trying to figure out. So let's look. If I went this way, negative 2 plus 5 gives us 3. So if this is plus 5, then this has to be plus 5. And 3 plus 5 gives us 8. Then this way, 0 to get to negative 5 would be minus 5. So if this is minus 5, then this is minus 5. And negative 5 minus 5 is negative 10. So our answer is 8, negative 10. Okay, so make sure you know the difference. If it says find the midpoint, then we're using our midpoint formula. If it says this is the midpoint, then we're just doing some math to find what would the other endpoint be. Number 5 wants us to find the distance. So if we want to find the distance, then we need to use the distance formula. So the distance formula says x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So let's label our x's and y's. X, y, x, y, first ordered pair, second ordered pair. So here, distance, x2 minus x1, and then y2 minus y1. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. And then negative 2 minus 8 is negative 8. Okay, so now remember that whenever we have a negative, you're going to want to make sure you use parentheses, because if we do negative 6 parentheses squared, we get a different answer than negative 6 squared. Okay, so if we have parentheses here in our formula, then you got to make sure you use parentheses in your calculator. So negative 6 squared with parentheses gives us positive 36. So this gives us positive 36 plus negative 8 squared, which gives us positive 64. Then 36 plus 64 gives us 100. And then the square root, remember we do second squared to get the square root. 100 gives us 10. Okay, in number 7, it wants us to write an equation of a line that passes through this point. So our answer is y equals mx plus b. So if I want to know what the m is and the b is, then I first need to find the m by using our slope formula. Okay, so our slope formula is negative 2 minus, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So here's x1, y1, x2, y2. y2 is negative 4 minus y1 is 6 over x2 is 9 minus x1 is 4. So it gives us negative 10 over 5, which gives us negative 2. So negative 2 here is the m. Now that we've gotten that far, now we're going to plug one of our points in to find b. I'm going to choose to pick this one. Okay, so the y is 6, the m is negative 2, the x is 4, and I'm trying to find b. This gives us negative 8 plus b. Then if I want to get b by itself, I have to move the negative 8 to the other side by adding 8. The opposite of negative 8 is a positive 8. And then 6 plus 8 gives us 14. So b is 14. Now I'm not going to do number 8, but number 8 is the same thing. It wants us to do y equals mx plus b. Except the nice thing is it tells us right away the slope is negative 1/2. So we can put that negative 1/2 right in here right away instead of having to go through this work to find m. Okay, so that's the difference between these two problems. In this problem, they gave us 2 ordered pairs, so we had to find the slope. In number 8, they gave us the slope, so you can skip this step and go straight to this step. Okay, so in number 9, it wants us to determine if AB and CD of the given lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, and explain your reasoning. So if I want to know if they're parallel, perpendicular, or either, that tells us we have to find the slope. And if I want to find the slope, then I have to use my slope formula. So AB, y2 is negative 5, or positive 5, minus y1 is 1, x2 0, minus x1 negative 4. So that gives us 4 over 0 minus negative 4 would be positive 4, which gives us 1. And then CD, we've got negative 1 minus 3 over 4 minus 0. Gives us negative 4 over 4, which gives us negative 1. So they're not parallel, because parallel means that they have to be the same, so they're not parallel. In order to be perpendicular, we need one positive and one negative. One positive, one negative, so that's a good thing. And then they also need to be reciprocals. Well, 1 over 1 flipped is still 1 over 1. So these are perpendicular. Perpendicular. Okay, in number 11, it wants us to write an equation. So write an equation means my answer is y equals mx plus b. That goes through this point and is parallel. Now remember, parallel means same slope. So if I look here, the slope is 2. So because parallel means same slope, because this is 2, I know this has to be 2. So if that's 2, this is 2. If that's 5, this is 5. If that's a half, then this is a half, because they're parallel. Now we're going to plug in our x and our y. So the y is 6, the m is 2, the x is negative 1, and I'm finding b. So we have 6 equals negative 2 plus b. To move the negative 2, we add 2, which gives us b equals 8. Okay, so if they're parallel, they mean the same. So because this is 2, this is a 2. Okay, whereas in the next problem, in number 12, it tells us that we want to write an equation. So that means our answer is y equals mx plus b. That goes through this point, so that's important. And that is perpendicular. So if our slope here is 2, if it said parallel, then this is a 2 and I'd put a 2 here. But because it says perpendicular, that means we have to do the reciprocal, which means flip. So 2 over 1 becomes 1 over 2. And we have to have one positive or one negative. We need the opposite. So because this is positive, we need this one to be negative. So this is negative 1 over 2. Now that we know our slope, we can plug in the x and the y like we did in the last problem. Y is 6. Our slope is negative 1 over 2. The x is -1, and then plus b. So 6 equals, then we could use our calculators, -1/2 times -1, just like that with parentheses. And then we're going to press math fraction to give us 1/2. So that gives us +1/2 plus b. Now to move a positive to the other side, we'll use subtraction. So we'll have 6 minus 1/2. That gives us a decimal, so press math fraction. And that gives us b is 11/2. Okay, number 15. Number 15 says, a map of Yorkville is drawn on a coordinate grid. The high school is found at this point, so that's the high school is found at this point. Starbucks is here, and we want to know how far the high school is to Starbucks. Okay, so if we want to know how far, that tells us that we have to use the distance formula. So we're going to use our distance formula. Here's x1, y1, x2, y2. So we've got 3 minus -1, and then 6 minus -2, right? We're using our distance formula. It's on the front page of your packet. Remember, subtracting a negative means add. So we get 4 squared, 8 squared. If you don't know your squares, use your calculator. 4 squared gives us 16. 8 squared gives us 64. 16 plus 64 gives us the square root of 80. And the square root of 80 is 8.9. Oops. Okay, now in the next problem, it's telling us, we're using kind of the same thing here. It's telling us that Walgreens is halfway between. So remember, halfway is telling us we want to find the midpoint. So I want to do the midpoint formula between these two ordered pairs. Remember, the midpoint, we take x1 plus x2 and divide by 2, and y1 plus y2 and divide by 2. That's our midpoint formula. That gives us 2/2 and 4/2. 2 divided by 2 gives us 1. 4 divided by 2 gives us 2. So halfway means midpoint, then use your midpoint formula to get your answer. Okay, when we're solving systems, you've got 2 things that you could do to solve systems. You could do substitution or elimination. Okay, you could honestly use either one. In this problem, I would suggest using substitution. Okay, the reason I suggest that is because it already says y equals. So when there's already a y equals or an x equals, substitution is really easy. So in this problem, it says y equals 5x minus 1. So I'm going to plug that in for the y right here. So instead of writing y, I'm going to write 5x plus 1. So we've got 2, but instead of writing a y, I'm going to write 5x minus 1. We're going to substitute it in, equals 3x plus 12. Then we're going to use our algebra to solve. So we're going to distribute so that we get rid of the parentheses. Then we have to get all of our x's to the same side. So to move a positive 3x, we're going to subtract the 3x. So that gives us 7x minus 2 equals 12. Then I'm going to want to move the -2 by adding it. That gives us 7x equals 14. Then divide by the 7 to get the x by itself. So we get x is 2. So we're not done because I need to find x, y, and then 2x minus y. So now that I know this is 2, now we need to know y. Well, if we look here, y equals 5x minus 1, and we just found out that x is 2. So y equals 5 times 2 minus 1. which gives us 10 minus 1, which gives us 9. So y is 9. Now that I know x is 2 and y is 9, now I can find this. 2x minus y. Well, we know the x is 2. We know the y is 9. So we get negative 5. On the next problem, we want to find the system again. So remember, you've got substitution or elimination as your options. In the last problem, substitution was better because it said y equals or x equals. This one we don't have an a equals or a b equals. So I would say elimination would be easier in this problem. So remember, in elimination, we want either the a's to cancel or the b's to cancel. So if we look at the second equation, I could easily make this 2 a 4 if I multiplied it by 2, right? If I multiplied this by 2, that would give me 4. And I want these numbers to be the same. But I want one of them to be negative so that when I add them, they cancel. So I'm going to make this a negative so that this becomes a negative 2 or negative 4. So if I multiply that by negative 2, then I need to multiply each of these by negative 2. So that gives me negative 5a plus 4b equals 49. That doesn't change. This becomes negative 14a. This becomes negative 4b and positive 26. Or excuse me, 46. So now when I add these, negative 5 plus negative 14 gives us negative 19a. 4b minus 4b cancels. That was the whole point. And then 49 plus 46 gives us 95. Now that we just have a, I can solve by dividing. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we have a equals 95 divided by negative 19 gives us negative 5. So a is negative 5. Now that we know a is negative 5, I can find b. I'm going to use the second equation. So I'm going to have 7a equals, plus 2b equals negative 23. And I know a is negative 5. So 7 times negative 5 plus 2b equals negative 23. That gives us negative 35 plus 2b equals negative 23. Now if I want to start solving to move a negative 35, I need to add it. So that gives me 2b equals negative 23 plus 35. Gives us 12. Divide by 2, divide by 2, b is 6. Now that I know a is negative 5 and b is 6, I can plug in here. So 2 times a, divide by 6. That gives us negative 10 over 6. In our calculators, if I plug in negative 10 divided by 6, that gives me a decimal. But I can do math fraction, which gives us negative 5 over 3.